March 7, 1952. Marcus "Pretty Boy" Williams had been Bumpy Johnson's friend for 12 years. They grew up on the same block, ate at the same table. Marcus knew every safe house, every meeting spot, every move Bumpy made. That's exactly why the Genovese family paid him $35,000 to give them one address. 72 hours later, Marcus was found slumped in a booth at Red Rooster Diner. Not a scratch on him. Not a drop of blood. Just a handwritten note folded in his jacket pocket. When the police read it, they sealed the case file. When the Genovese family heard what it said, they held an emergency meeting. When word spread through Harlem, every man who'd ever thought about crossing Bumpy Johnson changed his mind. This is what the note said, and why it became the most feared message in organized crime history. Bumpy Johnson wasn't supposed to survive past 40. By 1952, he'd already done 2 stretches in Sing Sing, survived 6 assassination attempts, and built an empire that stretched from 110th Street to the Polo Grounds. The Italian mob respected him, feared him, but they didn't own him. And that was the problem. See, Harlem was the richest untapped territory in New York. Numbers rackets pulling in $50,000 a week. Policy games in every apartment building. Loan shocking operations on every corner. The 5 families wanted it. All of it. But there was one man standing in their way. One man who'd turned down every partnership offer, every buyout proposal, every threat they'd made. Bumpy Johnson had something they couldn't buy and couldn't break. He had Harlem's loyalty. Every shop owner, every working mother, every street kid knew Bumpy protected them. The Italian mob could send 100 soldiers. It wouldn't matter, because 40,000 people would die before they let anyone touch him. So they changed strategy. They decided to do something they'd never done before. Something that went against every code in the underworld. They decided to buy his friend. Marcus Williams wasn't a gangster. Not really. He ran a jazz club on Lenox Avenue called the Blue Note. Bumpy gave him the seed money. Protected him from shakedowns. Made sure no one touched his business. Marcus was more than a friend. He was family. And that made him valuable. February 20th, 1952. Marcus gets a visit. 3 men in expensive suits walk into the Blue Note at 2 a.m. The club is closed. Marcus is counting receipts. He recognizes 2 of them. Anthony "Tony" Bender Strollo, right hand to Vito Genovese. And Salvatore "Sally" Burns Granello, the man who handled the family's most sensitive operations. They don't threaten him. They don't wave guns. They slide an envelope across the bar. Inside it, $35,000. All they want is one piece of information. Where does Bumpy Johnson sleep on Thursday nights? Marcus stares at the money. His club is struggling. His mother needs an operation. His little sister needs college tuition. That envelope is 5 years of profit. 5 years of grinding. Right there in front of him. Tony Bender leans in. We ain't asking you to pull the trigger. We ain't asking you to set him up. Just tell us where he lays his head Thursday night. That's it. You never see us again. You never hear from us again. And that money, that's yours. Free and clear. Marcus looks at the envelope. Then at the door. Then back at the envelope. He thinks about Bumpy. About the man who saved his club. Who came to his father's funeral. Who treated him like a brother. But he also thinks about his mother's medical bills. His sister's future. The weight of responsibility crushing him every single day. $35,000. That's more money than Marcus has ever seen in one place. It's more than his father made in his entire lifetime working the docks. It's enough to solve every problem that keeps him awake at night. The club's debts. His mother's heart condition. His sister's tuition at Howard University. All of it. Gone. Erased. With one simple answer to one simple question. Thursday night. That's all they want to know. Not Monday when Bumpy meets with his accountants. Not Tuesday when he handles collections. Not Wednesday when he sits at Jock's place holding court with half of Harlem. Thursday. The one night Bumpy disappears. The one night nobody's supposed to know where he goes. Except Marcus knows. because 3 months ago, Bumpy trusted him with it. "I got a lady friend on 138th, Bumpy had told him over drinks. "Thursday nights, that's my time. Nobody bothers me. Nobody knows. You know why I'm telling you this, Marcus?" Marcus had shaken his head. Bumpy leaned in close. "Because if something happens to me, if I don't show up Friday morning, you're the only person who knows where to look. That's trust, brother. That's family." Now Marcus sits in his empty club staring at $35,000. He thinks about that conversation. He thinks about the word family. He thinks about everything Bumpy has done for him. But he also thinks about the collection notices stacking up on his desk. The loan sharks circling. His mother's doctor saying she needs surgery soon or she might not make it to next year. What would Bumpy do if he knew? Would he help? Probably. But Marcus has already borrowed so much. Already taken so much. How can he ask for more? How can he admit that even with all of Bumpy's protection, all his help, the club is still failing? That he's still drowning? That $35,000 looks like salvation sitting right there in front of him? Tony Bender watches Marcus's face. He's seen this look before. The look of a man doing mathematics in his head. Adding up debts. Subtracting pride. Calculating whether betrayal is worth the price. Tony knows the answer before Marcus does. It always is. For desperate men. And Marcus Williams is desperate. "Nobody gets hurt," Tony adds. "We just want to talk to him. Have a conversation. Maybe work something out. You know how these things go. Business. That's all this is. Business." Marcus knows it's a lie. You don't send 4 men in the middle of the night to have a conversation. You don't pay $35,000 for a chat about business. But desperate men believe lies when the truth is too expensive. And Marcus Williams is desperate enough to believe anything. He takes the envelope. His hands shake as he slides it across the bar toward himself. And then he tells them, 138th Street, between 7th and Lenox. 3rd building from the corner. 2nd floor apartment. Red door. He gets there around 11. Stays till morning. Tony Bender smiles. It's not a warm smile. It's the smile of a man who just won a bet he knew he'd win. That wasn't so hard, was it? He stands up. Sally Burns stands with him. They head for the door. Before he leaves, Tony turns back. "We were never here, Marcus. You never saw us. You never took that money. And by Friday morning, you'll be free of every debt you got. That's a promise." The door closes. Marcus sits alone in his club holding an envelope full of blood money. He tells himself it's not betrayal. He tells himself Bumpy will survive whatever happens. He tells himself $35,000 is enough to make this okay. But deep down, in a place he won't admit exists, he knows the truth. He just sold out his brother. And some debts can never be paid. He takes the envelope. And he tells them. Thursday night, March 6, 1952. Bumpy Johnson is staying at a brownstone on 138th Street. It's not a safe house. It's not a fortress. It's his girlfriend's apartment. A place almost nobody knows about. Almost nobody. Except Marcus. Because Bumpy trusted him with everything. 11:47 p.m. 4 men arrive at the brownstone. They're not there to talk. They're carrying .45s with silencers. They've been paid $15,000 each to finish this job. The Genovese family wants it done clean. No witnesses. No mess. Just Bumpy Johnson dead in his sleep. They pick the lock. They climb the stairs. They reach the 2nd floor apartment. The door is unlocked. That's the first strange thing. Bumpy never leaves doors unlocked. One of the hitmen whispers, "Something's wrong." But they're already inside. And that's when they see him. Bumpy Johnson is sitting in an armchair. Fully dressed. Wide awake. Smoking a cigarette. He's not reaching for a gun. He's not calling for backup. He's just sitting there. Calm. Like he's been expecting them. Because he has been. One of the hitmen raises his weapon. Bumpy doesn't flinch. He takes a drag from his cigarette and says 6 words. 6 words that make all 4 men lower their guns. Tony Bender sent you. I know. The lead hitman freezes. How does he know Tony Bender's name? How does he know who sent them? How is he even here, awake, waiting? Bumpy stands up slowly. He walks to the window. He pulls back the curtain. Down on the street, there are 20 men. All of them watching the building. All of them armed. All of them waiting for one signal from Bumpy. Here's what's going to happen, Bumpy says. His voice is steady. No anger. No fear. Just facts. You're going to walk out of here. You're going to tell Tony Bender that Harlem is off limits. And you're going to deliver a message for me. The hitmen don't move. They don't speak. They just listen. Because at this moment, they realize something. Bumpy knew they were coming. He knew exactly when. He knew exactly where. Which means someone told him. Or someone told him everything. But there's more to it than that. The lead hitman looks around the apartment. Everything is exactly as it should be. The lights are on. There's coffee brewing in the kitchen. A record player sits in the corner with a jazz album ready to play. This isn't the scene of a man who barely escaped. This is the scene of a man who planned everything. Every detail. Every moment. How long you been sitting there? The lead hitman asks. His voice cracks slightly. Fear does that to men. Even professional killers. Bumpy takes another drag from his cigarette. The ember glows orange in the dim light. Since 9 o'clock. Been waiting 3 hours for you boys to show up. You're late. Tony told you 11:30, didn't he? The hitman's blood runs cold. Bumpy knows the exact time they were supposed to arrive. Which means he didn't just know they were coming. He knew everything. The whole plan. Every detail. Which means this isn't a close call. This isn't Bumpy getting lucky. This is Bumpy teaching a lesson. You know what the problem with betrayal is? Bumpy asks. He's not talking to them. Not really. He's talking to someone who isn't in the room. Someone who sold him out for $35,000. The problem is it only works if the person you're betraying trusts you completely. And I don't trust completely. I trust carefully. One of the other hitmen glances toward the door. Bumpy notices. Don't, he says quietly. The moment you move toward that door, 20 men outside start shooting. And I promise you, they won't miss. Tell Tony Bender that betrayal has a price, Bumpy continues. And that price gets paid in full. Always. The 4 men leave. They don't run. But they don't walk slow either. They get in their car and drive straight to Little Italy. They deliver the message word for word. And Tony Bender knows immediately what it means. Bumpy found out about Marcus. Which means Marcus is already dead. Or worse. But Marcus isn't dead. Not yet. See, Bumpy Johnson didn't survive 20 years in the most dangerous city in America by being careless. He survived by being 3 steps ahead. Always. When he told Marcus about the Thursday night location, it wasn't just trust. It was a test. One of many tests he'd been running for months. Because Bumpy had noticed things. Small things. The way Marcus seemed nervous lately. The way he avoided eye contact. The way he asked questions that seemed innocent but weren't. You still seeing that girl on 138th? You going there this Thursday? Questions a friend might ask. But questions an informant would definitely ask. So Bumpy tested him. He gave Marcus the address. But he also put watchers on Marcus's club. 2 men. Rotating shifts. Watching everyone who came and went. And on February 20th, at 2 a.m., they watched 3 men in expensive suits walk into the Blue Note. They watched Marcus count money. They watched him nod. They watched the men leave. The watchers called Bumpy within 5 minutes. Bumpy listened to the description of the 3 men. He knew immediately who they were. Tony Bender, Sally Burns, and a driver. Which meant the Genovese family had just bought his location. Which meant Marcus had just failed the test. Which meant Thursday night was going to be very interesting. Bumpy didn't panic. He didn't rage. He didn't immediately go after Marcus. Instead, he planned. Because revenge isn't about emotion. It's about sending a message. And the message Bumpy wanted to send required precision, timing, and one very specific detail that would haunt Marcus Williams for the rest of his very short life. On February 21st, Bumpy made a phone call to Dr. Abraham Weinstein, the best cardiac surgeon in New York. "I need you to look at someone," Bumpy said. "Martha Williams. She's got a bad heart. I want her fixed. Top care. Whatever it costs." Dr. Weinstein knew better than to ask questions. "When?" "Schedule it for March 12th. Private room. Best staff. And doctor. Send the bill to me." That same day, Bumpy arranged the Thursday night trap. He called his 20 most trusted men. Not the young guns who wanted to prove themselves. The veterans. The ones who knew how to stay quiet and shoot straight. He gave them positions around the 138th Street building. Rooftops, alleys, parked cars, all with clear sight lines to the entrance. Then he waited. Because some lessons need time to develop. Some messages need anticipation. And what Bumpy was about to do to Marcus Williams needed both. March 7th, 1952. 6:30 a.m. Marcus Williams is found sitting in a booth at Red Rooster Diner on 145th Street. The waitress who discovers him thinks he's asleep at first. His head is resting on the table. His hands are folded in his lap. There's a coffee cup in front of him, still warm. But Marcus isn't sleeping. His heart stopped beating sometime around 5 a.m. Not from a bullet. Not from a knife. From pure fear. The police arrive at 6:52 a.m. They check for wounds. Nothing. They check for poison. Nothing. The coroner later rules it cardiac arrest. A heart attack. A 34-year-old man with no medical history just died from a heart attack. But that's not what killed Marcus Williams. It's what's in his jacket pocket that tells the real story. A detective finds it. A single piece of paper, folded once. No envelope. No seal. Just a note written in careful handwriting. Black ink. Steady letters. The kind of handwriting that comes from a man who's had plenty of time to think about every word. The detective reads it. His face goes pale. He calls his sergeant over. The sergeant reads it. He immediately calls his captain. The captain reads it and makes a decision that goes against every protocol in the NYPD handbook. He seals the case file. He marks it closed. He orders every copy of the note destroyed except one, which goes into a locked safe at the precinct. But before they destroy the copies, word gets out. It always does. The note makes its way to the Genovese family by noon. It reaches the other 4 families by dinner. And by midnight, every gangster, every hustler, every street operator in New York has heard about it. Not the exact words. Nobody's supposed to know the exact words. But they know enough. They know what Bumpy Johnson is capable of. And they know what happens when you betray him. So what did the note say? 3 sentences. 24 words. That's all it took to end Marcus Williams and send a message that would echo through the underworld for decades. The first sentence, "I gave you everything." 4 words. Simple. True. Bumpy had given Marcus his club, his protection, his trust, his friendship. Everything that mattered. Everything Marcus needed to survive in a world that chewed up men like him every single day. Those 4 words aren't an accusation. They're a statement of fact. A reminder of the debt that can never be repaid. The second sentence, "You gave them Thursday." 4 words again. Specific. Precise. Bumpy doesn't say, "You betrayed me." He doesn't say, "You sold me out." He just states exactly what Marcus did. He gave them Thursday. The one night Bumpy let his guard down. The one location almost nobody knew. The one piece of information that could have gotten him killed. Marcus gave them that. For $35,000. The third sentence. This is the one that stopped Marcus Williams' heart. This is the one that made the Genovese family hold emergency meetings. This is the one that became legend. 6 words. Your mother's surgery is paid for. That's what killed Marcus Williams. Not a bullet. Not poison. Not violence. The knowledge that Bumpy Johnson knew everything. Knew about the bribe. Knew about Marcus's mother. Knew about the medical bills. Knew about every single reason Marcus thought he needed to betray him. And despite all of it, despite the betrayal, despite the $35,000, despite the 4 hitmen sent to murder him in his sleep, Bumpy still paid for his mother's surgery. Marcus Williams didn't die from a heart attack. He died from guilt. He died from the weight of understanding that he'd betrayed the one man who would have helped him anyway. All he had to do was ask. Instead, he sold out his brother for money he didn't even need anymore. Because the moment that note appeared in his pocket, Marcus knew Bumpy had already taken care of everything. The surgery was scheduled for March 12th. Top surgeon. Private hospital. All expenses covered. Bumpy had arranged it 3 weeks earlier. Before the Genovese family approached Marcus. Before the envelope of cash. Before any of it happened. He'd already taken care of it. Because that's what Bumpy did. He took care of his people. Always. Marcus took $35,000 to betray a man who'd already solved his problem. And then that man, instead of killing him, instead of making him suffer, paid for his mother's surgery anyway. That's what stopped Marcus Williams' heart. The crushing weight of knowing he'd betrayed the one person who never needed to be betrayed. The Genovese family got the message loud and clear. You can't buy loyalty in Harlem. You can't break it. You can't threaten it. Because Bumpy Johnson had already given his people something worth more than money. He'd given them respect, protection, dignity. And when you give people that, they don't betray you. Not for $35,000. Not for $1 million. Not ever. Tony Bender never tried to move on Harlem again. In fact, 6 months later, when another family suggested a play for 125th Street, Tony Bender was the one who shut it down. He told them what he'd learned that night in March. You can kill one man, but you can't kill 40,000. And that's how many people would die for Bumpy Johnson. The note disappeared into police archives. But its message lived on. 4 years after, whenever someone in the underworld considered betraying a friend, someone would tell them the story. The story of Marcus Williams. The story of the man who sold out Bumpy Johnson and died without a scratch on him. The story of 3 sentences that became the most feared message in organized crime history. Because Bumpy Johnson proved something that night. Something more powerful than any gun, any army, any amount of money. He proved that real power isn't about violence. It's about loyalty. And loyalty isn't bought. It's earned. Every single day. Through action. Through respect. Through taking care of your people even when they don't take care of you. Marcus Williams is buried in Woodlawn Cemetery. His mother lived another 20 years. The surgery was successful. She never knew who paid for it. She never knew what her son did. She just knew that somehow, someway, everything worked out. Because in Harlem, when you were part of Bumpy Johnson's world, things worked out. Even when you didn't deserve it. The Red Rooster Diner kept booth 7 empty for 6 months after Marcus died. Not out of respect. Out of fear. Because every gangster, every hustler, every operator who walked past that booth knew what happened there. They knew that's where betrayal died. Where loyalty was proven. Where Bumpy Johnson sent a message that would echo through the streets for generations. You can't kill a man with kindness. But you can break him with it. You can show him exactly what he threw away. Exactly what he lost. Exactly what he never needed to lose in the first place. And sometimes, that's worse than any bullet. That's the legend of the note. That's the story of Marcus Williams. That's why, even today, when old-timers in Harlem talk about loyalty, they mention 3 sentences. 24 words. And a man who died from guilt instead of lead. Because you can buy a lot of things in this world. But you can't buy what Bumpy Johnson had. You can't buy the kind of loyalty that lasts beyond betrayal. You can't buy the kind of respect that survives death. And you sure as hell can't buy the kind of power that comes from being the man who pays for your traitor's mother's surgery. That's not weakness. That's the strongest move Bumpy Johnson ever made. Because it told everyone in New York exactly who he was. Not a gangster. Not a killer. Not a mob boss. A protector. A leader. A man who kept his word even when others broke theirs. And in a world built on betrayal, violence, and broken promises, that made him untouchable. March 7, 1952. The day Marcus Williams died. The day 3 sentences changed organized crime forever. The day Bumpy Johnson proved that the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a gun. It's loyalty. And loyalty, real loyalty, survives everything. Even betrayal.